One summer night, sitting in the garden, you hear that infamous sound right next to your ear. Your reflex is to grab your slipper, because what you see is a tiny fly. But what I'm about to tell you is a little disturbing. Not from a lion. Not from a shark. Not from a snake. The deadliest creature in the world is the mosquito. It causes the death of approximately 1 million people every year. And it doesn't do this by tearing apart with its teeth or poisoning. It does it through the diseases it carries: malaria, dengue fever, Zika, and many more. Even more interestingly, despite being so deadly, it's an indispensable food source for many creatures in nature. So, on the one hand, they cause the death of millions of people, and on the other hand, they help the ecosystem survive. So how did a tiny mosquito become the deadliest creature in human history? Let's first look at how it finds its prey. Because mosquitoes track you much better than you think. In a dark room, they don't see you with their eyes. They practically smell you. As you breathe, you release carbon dioxide into the air. This gas, ordinary for us, is like a neon sign visible from miles away for them. Add in your body heat, sweat odor, and other chemicals produced by your metabolism, and you become a walking buffet for mosquitoes. In fact, this is why some people are targeted more often than others. You've probably experienced this yourself. 5 people are in the same room, but mosquitoes keep biting you. There's a reason for this. Studies show that people with blood type 0 are more frequently targeted. Pregnant women and people with faster metabolisms are also more attractive to mosquitoes. All the mosquitoes that bite you are female mosquitoes. Male mosquitoes live quite a calm life in nature. They don't suck blood, they feed on flower nectar. It's the females that are really after us, because they need the protein and iron in the blood to develop their eggs. So that mosquito coming towards you is actually a mother trying to raise her young. Of course, this information doesn't make the itching any more bearable. So how do they bite you without you noticing? That's where things get a little creepy, because a mosquito's proboscis isn't actually a single, needle-like structure. When examined under a microscope, it's a complex system made up of parts with different functions. Some parts cut the skin, some prevent blood clotting, and some suck the blood. Moreover, they release chemicals that have an anesthetic effect while doing all this. Before you even realize what's happening, the process is complete. At this point, a very simple question comes to mind. Since they're so annoying, what if we just eliminated them completely? To be honest, most of us would probably say that would be great without thinking for a second. But the interesting thing is, nature doesn't hate them as much as we do. Because mosquitoes are one of the planet's most important sources of protein, especially during their larval stage, they form incredibly large populations in lakes, swamps, and stagnant waters. And these tiny creatures are the main food source for countless animals. Fish fry eat them, frogs eat them, bats hunt thousands at night. Birds practically harvest flies in the sky. Especially in regions near the poles, swarms of mosquitoes that appear during the summer months become so large that the entire feeding pattern of migratory birds depends on them. If they suddenly disappeared, many species would face serious food shortages. But it's not just about them being eaten. Most of us know mosquitoes only as blood-sucking creatures. However, they have no use for blood for most of their lives. Male mosquitoes, in particular, feed entirely on nectar. They go from flower to flower, and in doing so, they carry pollen just like bees. In fact, it is thought that mosquitoes play an important role in the reproduction of certain orchid species in some regions. So, these creatures that we hate, on the one hand, carry diseases, and on the other hand, help some plants continue their species. But all this does not change their impact on humanity. Because mosquitoes may have changed not only the present day, but even the course of history. Fear lions. We fear elephants. We stay away from snakes. But none of these animals have harmed humans as much as mosquitoes. Even today, diseases carried by mosquitoes cause the death of approximately 1 million people every year. And this number is higher than the death toll from many wars and natural disasters. No one would realize that the culprit was a tiny mosquito that had landed on their arm just days earlier. Malaria, in particular, became one of the deadliest diseases in human history. For societies living in tropical regions, this disease was an invisible enemy for centuries. Some historians even believe that mosquitoes changed the outcome of wars. It may sound like an exaggeration, but consider this: an army of thousands of soldiers enters a new territory. Before they even fight the enemy, disease strikes. The soldiers develop fevers. They become weak. And before swords are even drawn, a significant portion of the army is incapacitated. From the Roman Empire to modern times, many armies are known to have suffered heavy losses due to malaria and similar diseases. So, sometimes the fate of wars may have been determined not by generals, but by mosquitoes swarming in swamps. It wasn't an asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. It wasn't a lion. It wasn't a crocodile. It was a tiny insect. And despite all this, we haven't been able to completely eradicate it. But for the first time in history, this situation may have begun to change. Because scientists are now starting to manipulate the genes of mosquitoes instead of hunting them. And this is where things turn into science fiction movies. The methods humans have used against mosquitoes for centuries haven't changed much. Smoke, nets, pesticides, sprays. But now scientists are trying something different. Instead of killing mosquitoes from the outside, they are trying to destroy their populations from the inside. And the method they are using sounds like pure science fiction. Imagine, specially bred male mosquitoes are produced in a laboratory. These mosquitoes look completely normal, but there is a hidden genetic change in them. Scientists release these males into nature. They go and mate with wild females. However, most of the offspring die before reaching adulthood. So the population begins to collapse from within, not from the outside. It's almost a Trojan horse operation. And this idea hasn't just remained theoretical, it's been tested in different parts of the world for years. But there's an even more interesting method. This time, genetic engineering isn't even used. Instead, a bacterium called Wolbachia is inserted into the mosquitoes. This normally harmless bacterium can largely prevent the mosquito from carrying some dangerous viruses. So the mosquito can bite you, but it can't transmit the disease. The goal is no longer to kill every mosquito, but to biologically neutralize them. For the first time in human history, we may have begun to gain a truly significant advantage against mosquitoes. So how do we protect ourselves today, without access to laboratory technology? Because much of the advice circulating online isn't as effective as you might think. Those ultrasonic mosquito repellent apps you download to your phone, there's no solid scientific evidence that they work. Similarly, lemon peel, vinegar, various miracle mixtures, and many methods circulating on social media are often not as effective as expected. Mosquitoes have been evolving for millions of years. It's not as easy to fool them as we think. DEET and picaridin are among the substances shown to be effective in scientific studies. When buying a mosquito repellent, it's more sensible to look at the ingredients rather than the brand. But the real battle isn't won with adult mosquitoes, but with the eggs. A female mosquito can lay hundreds of eggs at once, and sometimes, a surprisingly small puddle is enough. A flower pot saucer in the garden, a forgotten bucket, an old tire filled with rainwater. Places we don't notice are like giant birthing hospitals for them. That's why the most frequent advice from experts is quite simple: eliminate stagnant water. Because the most effective method of fighting mosquitoes is to reduce their numbers before they even appear. And so we come to the end of the story. That tiny creature you run at with your slipper in your bed at night. It's actually the product of about 200 million years of evolutionary history. It has a mouth structure resembling microscopic surgical instruments. It carries some of the deadliest diseases in world history. It has changed the fate of empires, armies, and millions of people. It is also part of a huge ecosystem that feeds birds, fish, and countless other creatures. So the next time you hear that sound, you'll be annoyed again. You'll probably grab your slipper again, but you'll also know that what you're facing isn't just an annoying insect. That tiny creature is one of the most successful and deadliest things the world has ever seen.